Hello and welcome back to the Unnamed Movie Podcast. I'm Ben, and today I'm going to be reviewing the newest Conjuring film, The Devil Made Me Do It. Now, I was super excited for this movie. I love the first two Conjuring films, the second one in particular probably being in my top 5 favorite horror movies. And this being the third major installment of the franchise, I really couldn't wait. I was super excited to see it. Now, let me preface this by saying I grew up in a very religious household. Like, my parents were Pentecostal, so I grew up being afraid of demonic possession. And even now, as a 26-year-old grown man, when I know I probably shouldn't be as terrified of it as I am, those roots run deep. And these are the kind of movies that always fuck me up. And I say all that to say this. I watched this at midnight in complete darkness, entirely alone. And I slept like a baby. And anytime I can sleep like a baby after watching a horror movie, you know the film probably didn't do its job. Now look, that's not to say this is the worst horror film I've ever seen. I mean, there were a couple of strong points throughout. Namely, right off the bat, the relationship between Ed and Lorraine Warren has always been kind of the best part of these films. You really believe those two characters are in love, and you really believe they care about the families involved. That's still there. They're still good characters. I like them. But there were just a lot of shortcomings. There's a great bit where, you know how in every exorcism movie there's like one of these fucking things where it's like someone's being possessed and they're like all that crazy, ridiculous movement. That's in this movie, and it's done very well. Like, surprisingly well. I watched it and I was like, good God. Turns out they actually brought in a contortionist to do that scene, and then they just CGI'd the character's face on it. That's a really cool moment, but it's kind of ruined by the fact that the CGI in this film is dog shit. Like, it's 2021, and this isn't like a low-budget indie film. This is a Conjuring movie, you know? They're not on a tight budget. And I feel like with a high production value film like this, I should not have to deal with bad CGI. If it was going to be that bad, I don't know, just don't do the scene. And there are a lot of those spliced in throughout the movie. Just scenes where things look a little bit off, you know? It's not like a college kid did it, but you look at it and you know, okay, that's not real. And that always takes me out of the movie, you know? And it would be one thing if this was a film from the early 2000s, but it's 2021, and I just feel like I shouldn't have to deal with bad CGI in a big budget horror film. And also, I mean, there are plenty of examples throughout history of great horror films that don't rely on CGI at all. You know, I mean, The Thing comes to mind off the top of my head, and that's probably one of the more famous ones, obviously, but it's a great movie and it doesn't rely on the CGI, and I don't know that you need to have it in those kind of scenes. You know, just don't show the kid's face. All right, back on topic. Sorry, went off on a tangent there. At one point, Ed looks at Lorraine and goes, I just can't remember a case ever being this bad. And I was sitting there thinking, well, that's weird, Ed, because I can remember 5 or 6 of them. Every other film in the franchise has higher stakes than this. The demon possessions are always way worse in those films. This one was small potatoes. And I don't know if it's because it focuses on 1 or 2 people rather than an entire family for the most part, or if it's just a lack of interaction between Ed and Lorraine and the side characters in this film. I feel like they interacted a lot more with the families in the previous films, especially 1 and 2. And, you know, while maybe those aren't the coolest characters that have ever been in a movie, you care about them because Ed and Lorraine care about them. And because you believe in Ed and Lorraine so much, like, they seem like real characters that are truly in love, you root for that family, you know? You want that family to, like, fucking kick the demon's ass. You want that. I didn't give a shit about anybody in this movie. And while, you know, Ed and Lorraine are still, like, close and you still believe that they're the same people, I don't know. It just felt like a bad script, maybe. There were some really odd lines in this, and it didn't seem like things that either Ed or Lorraine would say. And, I don't know. They kind of seem like amateurs in this. Like, they just don't know what to do with themselves. Which seems odd to me because we have watched them solve so many of these cases. I will say, though, that one of the things I did like about this film is that it was less of a demon possession movie and more of like a little mystery. Like most of the film has nothing to do with the possession. It's just Ed and Lorraine finding clues, trying to figure out where the big bad is, right? And look, I love a good mystery. This wasn't a good mystery, but it was a mystery. And maybe they fell a little bit short of the mark on that. But I can applaud them for at least trying something new. Good job, guys. I like that. They don't all have to be the same movie. You know, it doesn't always have to be like, oh, a family gets possessed by some demons. They follow them everywhere. The fucking Warrens come in and save the... I don't need it to always be that. You could make this franchise anything at all involving weird religious stuff. And there's a lot of that. You know, like maybe keep making demon possession movies, sure. But just change it up a little bit. I don't need the exact same thing to happen every time. And I feel like we get a lot of that with this film and with this franchise as a whole. And for the most part, it hasn't been bogged down by it too much. But I think we're starting to kind of get to the end of the franchise. I'm hoping. Because it feels like it's losing steam. At the end of the day, this latest installment failed to showcase the scares or the heart of the first two films. And while I can commend the filmmakers for trying something new with the whole mystery angle, I feel like they lost sight of what made this franchise so good to begin with. I don't care about jump scares, and I don't care about Lorraine's ever-growing superpowers. I care about heart, and this one doesn't have a lot of it. Alright guys, let's wrap up. The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, 5 out of 10. Not the worst horror film I've ever seen, but it doesn't hold a candle to the first two films in the franchise, and even some of the other spin-offs. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe and leave a comment down below and tell me if you prefer this new format. I'm still trying to figure out the lighting. I've rearranged my room to make it fit the format a little bit better, but it's a work in progress. Also, you guys can't tell, but the screen is just barely cutting off a crazy stain that I have on this shirt. It was one of my favorites too. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. You guys have a good day.